It's Christmas time, and while I would normally throw on a Christmas-themed episode of one of my favorite shows, Pokemon's definitive Christmas episode has been banned in the United States. Hey, this is GatorEX, and yes, I'm finally doing it. I'm talking about Holiday Hi-Jynx, the infamous anime episode from the original series. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. The reason this episode is controversial is because it was the first anime depiction of the Pokemon Jynx. But as I'm sure many of you astute Pokemon fans know, Jynx's original design was quite problematic, resembling offensive caricatures. I won't get into the potential reasoning behind this Pokemon's design and the exact cultural impact, those are topics for another day. If you're genuinely unaware of why this is problematic or are curious of possible explanations for Jynx's design, there are several other videos on the topic. I will just note that now Jynx is purple instead of black and has more appropriately shaped lips, a Pokemon that genuinely benefited from the modern redraws. Again, I'd love to dive into Jynx as a Pokemon at a later date, but for now we have an episode to watch. But that's just the thing, where can I even watch this episode? Well, it aired in Japan back in 1998 as usual. There's no way they aired this episode in the US, right? It's easily a one-off episode that doesn't have any bearing on the overall plot, so they just didn't dub it, right? Oh, they did? Well, they must have made some edits to the episode, right? See, that's what I thought, because I had seen screenshots of this episode with Jynx edited to be purple. I thought that these came from the US airing, but while I was watching some Pokemon Christmas commercials, I noticed they showed dark Jynx. So yes, in 1998 they had the unedited visuals for the first US airing, and that's what started this whole thing. As of now, the version available on streaming services in Japan is the edited purple version, while the original dub version did receive one release in a DVD set of episodes. However, after that, Holiday Hi-Jynx has never gotten another release in the rest of the world, even with the edited purple version existing. It is nowhere to be found on Netflix or Pokemon TV, and future holiday and winter themed DVD collections didn't include it. But there is one very obscure way that this episode was officially released in the US. But I'm never going to be able to track down whatever it is. I might as well just pass the time by opening up some Christmas presents. I've been wondering what this one is in particular. What if it's a GameCube game? That's right, Pokemon Holiday Hi-Jynx, the sticker book. Finally, GatorEX is talking about Pokemon literature, and it's a children's book. Now, this was published in 2001, a whole 2 years after the episode aired stateside. Why they chose to adapt it into a sticker book is beyond me, but taking a look at the low-quality screenshots, we can see that Jynx has been changed to purple. This book actually predates the purple edited Japanese episodes that weren't released until 2012. These edits were made solely for the release of this book, and if you get close enough, you can actually see that the purple mask is a higher resolution than the actual screenshots. Doesn't look like they did a good job in all of them. And so yes, this is the only way that you can officially enjoy the story of Holiday Hi-Jynx outside of Japan, unless you track down that one DVD release. Though I'm not satisfied with leaving it at just that. Let's hop onto the internet and take a look at the episode itself.
'Tis the season for giving. Happy holidays from Kids WB.
So our episode starts off zooming into this Tim Burton looking castle on a cliff. Inside we find Team Rocket testing out their Santa Claus trap. Yep, right out of the gate we're getting weird. Jessie is adamant about capturing Santa because when she was a child she saw a Jynx dressed as Santa take one of her broken toys and leave. Side note, because both Jessie and Misty were voiced by Rachel Lillis in the English dub, child Jessie sounds a little like Misty.
I saw it with my very own eyes! Santa Claus is a Jynx!
And now we catch up with our heroes as they spot a Jynx on the beach that Ash tries to catch at first. Of course he doesn't end up catching it because they find out that it belongs to Santa Claus, but could you imagine if Ash actually had a Jynx for the rest of the series? That would have ended the whole series outside of Japan. They decide to help Jynx get back to Santa and return his boot that she's still holding. And so they build a raft and attempt to cross the ocean to the North Pole. Not the most solid plan, but at this point in Pokemon I'll believe anything can work. And while they go a decent distance, eventually swapping their tired water Pokemon for Ash himself pulling the raft, again a plan that's destined to fail, they run into a Lapras. But not just any Lapras, a speaking Lapras. I think in this case Lapras being able to speak is just one of those things you accept. I mean, the premise of the whole episode requires you to accept that Santa exists in the world of Pokemon. So I feel like this isn't too much of a stretch to believe that his Lapras is magical as well. And yeah, that's why Lapras meets up with them. She's been asked by Santa to find the lost Jynx and bring her home. They're stopped by Team Rocket, who kidnap the Jynx and make their way to the workshop where they find a bunch of other Jynx running like clockwork, making toys and getting all the presents ready. And finally Jessie realizes that Santa does in fact exist and and isn't a Jinx, which he had thought as a child. So the episode escalates to Team Rocket tying up Santa and stealing all the presents. I mean, if you're gonna have a Christmas episode in an animated show, go big or go home. But it feels weird to write it down in a script, let alone watch it unfold before your eyes. Santa lets Jessie know that the whole thing from her childhood was a misunderstanding, and that the Jinx took the broken toy to have Santa fix it, but he couldn't return it because she stopped believing in him. In the original Japanese, the reason he doesn't return it is because she had moved away. This is one case where the dub actually did it better, because what does it matter if a child moves away? You're Santa Claus, you know what every child wants and where they live at any given time. The whole idea of his magic being based on belief or Christmas spirit or whatever is also even consistent with depictions in other shows and movies. Either way, Jessie gets her doll back, and while she's grateful, she, James, and Meowth follow through with their plan to steal the presents. Though Santa doesn't seem too worried, as all of the Jinx gather up and use Psywave to stop them and get the presents back. A pretty quick resolution, though you wonder why they never did any of this in the first place. Who cares, it makes for a nice climax. And the episode ends with Santa thanking Ash, Brock, and Misty before setting out on his usual Christmas Eve runs. And of course, because this episode was made during Generation 1, he has a ponyta pulling his sleigh. That's not completely unbelievable because Santa has been shown with horses before, but then the entire sleigh just takes off flying. Again, I'm going to attribute this to Santa himself being magic, and so he has a magical talking Lapras and a magical flying ponyta. Well, the episode ends with everyone getting their presents and Lapras promising to bring them home, while Team Rocket only get another visit from Jinx. Overall, this episode is fine. A typical weird and funny little adventure in the Pokemon anime that we get a bunch of during the original series. And I don't mean to discredit this episode, I think the anime as a whole is meant to be goofy and fun first and foremost. While it can get serious sometimes when we focus on characters, it's mostly an episodic comedy series where they do funny things. The episode is still technically canon, but I find it odd we never got another full-fledged Christmas episode of the main series. There have been several spin-off episodes or specials that I've covered in previous years, and there are other vaguely Christmas episodes later on. But I think the character of Santa could be revisited, especially with all the Pokemon of later generations that would have fit him even better. Though as for this episode, when you take into account the fact that there aren't any important story elements and its problematic history, I can see why it's just left out of the international episode rotation. If you're able to watch the episode, let me know what you think about it and whether you think the concept should be revisited. But anyway, hey, this is GatorEX, and thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed this year's Christmas special, looking at basically Pokemon's only Christmas episode. There are a few others that we could take a look at in the coming years, so let me know if you would like to see more of this in the future. Of course, I also want to thank you all for such a great year watching everything else that's happened, and I also want to thank every channel member for your continued support, especially the great Gators that are on my nice list here. Jackson, Justin R, Cosmo Zero, Michaela, Mr. Pig Puncher, Phantom Pyro, Quago, Volity, and Pastel Blood. As always, if you'd like to get a shout out here at the end of the video, though normally in a different end screen, you can become a channel member as well. But anyway, this has been GatorEX, and I wish you all happy holidays and a very Merry Christmas. I'll catch y'all later.
Welcome back to the Kids WB Kooky Carol Fest.
Deck the halls with Pokeballs!
Pikachu will light them all.
Pika, 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 pika.
Lapras go and make some snow.
Jinx will bring the mistletoe!
Yuck! Stay tuned for more of the Kids WB Kooky Carol Fest. But first, it's Pokemon next on Kids WB.